The United Kingdom has announced an end to COVID-19 protective measures. No more masks, no more vaccine mandates. The pandemic is basically over. I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is The Candice Malcolm Show. Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Now, first off, I need to apologize because I am recording this show right now from a hotel room. I am on the road right now. I thought I was going to be home in time to record today's show, so I didn't bring any of my normal equipment that I would bring when I'm traveling. I don't have a camera, I don't have a microphone, I don't have proper lighting. And so my apologies for the way that this looks and sounds, but let me assure you, we will be back in studio and things will go back to normal. Tomorrow, I wasn't anticipating having to record the show. I thought I'd be back, but alas, travel is not as easy as it used to be. And so here I am stuck doing this video from my hotel room. So now that I've got that out of the way, I want to talk to you today about this extraordinary news out of the United Kingdom. And now, of course, you could be cynical and you can say, look, Boris Johnson is in the fight for his political life. He's in huge trouble from all sides in the UK. He was caught breaking his own COVID rules and having these sort of so-called illicit parties at Downing Street. The Conservatives were not happy when the government introduced more COVID measures, as Conservatives should be unhappy about this. The idea of continuing to lock down society, given everything we know, given the fact that we know that staying at home creates more harm than good for most people, it creates more diseases of despair. We've seen huge growth in isolation, in suicides, in drug overdoses, all kinds of things, people missing early diagnosis of other diseases. We've seen huge explosions of other health issues because of COVID. And instead we have this sort of singular focus on COVID, even in the midst of a wave that, just let me tell you, it's completely mild. My entire household has now had COVID. We had it sort of various stages over Christmas. The latest person to get it is my mom, my kid's grandma. And let me tell you, she is in an age group that you would be concerned about. Her age, her past health conditions, she's at risk. And yet the COVID that's hit her right now is very mild. It's basically like the flu. She's got a sore throat, a bit of a runny nose. She's been down for a couple days and she's already feeling better. My son had COVID over Christmas. We barely even noticed it. If it wasn't for the fact that his swim teacher had COVID, told us that she had COVID, so we tested him. We tested him 3 times. The first 2 times he was negative. The third time he was positive. But if it wasn't for that test, we wouldn't have even known that he had COVID because he barely had any symptoms whatsoever and he's better. So this wave of COVID is different and it doesn't have the negative impact that previous waves have. I'm not saying that it's completely safe. Obviously, people are still getting sick. People are still going in the hospital and you can still have negative impact of COVID. But for all of society to lock down over it just makes no sense at this point. It's completely illogical given what we know about this strain. If anything, healthy people should want to go out and get this strain of COVID so that they get the antibodies, they get the natural immunities, and they can better fight future waves. All that's just to say, Conservatives in the UK were not happy with Boris Johnson. Perhaps that is why he gave this triumphant speech in the House of Commons over in the UK, where he announced basically an end to everything. It's over. No more restrictions, no more vaccine mandates, no more masks, no more masks for children in school. Thank goodness. One of the worst, absolutely most draconian, cruel policies that imaginable, making little kids who are just learning how to speak, learning how to communicate, learning how to be social, forcing them to wear masks. I can't imagine a worse policy than that. So that's all over in the UK. I want to show you a clip of Boris Johnson in the House of Commons in the UK delivering this wonderful speech.
We can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire. As a result, from the start of Thursday next week, mandatory certification will end. Organisations can, of course, choose to use the NHS COVID pass voluntarily, but we will end the compulsory use of COVID status certification in England. From now on, the government is no longer asking people to work from home. And people should now speak to their employers about arrangements for returning to the office. And having looked at the data carefully, the Cabinet concluded that once regulations lapse, the government will no longer mandate the wearing of face masks anywhere. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, from tomorrow we will no longer require face masks in classrooms, and the Department for Education will shortly remove national guidance on their use in communal areas. In the country at large, we will continue to suggest the use of face coverings in enclosed or crowded spaces, particularly when you come into contact with people you don't normally meet, but we will trust the judgment of the British people and no longer criminalise anyone who chooses not to wear one. The government will also ease restrictions further on visits to care homes, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, will set out plans in the coming days. Mr. Speaker, as we return to Plan A, the House will know that some measures still remain, including those on self-isolation.
No more vaccine mandates, no more vaccine passports. It's all going to be voluntary now in the UK. No more working from home, no more masks for children in the classroom, so key. And I love that the last line that he delivered there. We are going to trust the judgment of the British people. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a leader in Canada saying that they're going to trust the judgment of the people? It was music to my ears, so refreshing to hear. And I'll tell you why this gives me hope. Okay, so over the last 2 years, we've sort of been living through multiple experiments. Lots of different governments and different jurisdictions have taken totally different approaches to COVID. Look at how Sweden approached it. Very little lockdowns. They focused very much on the people who were most at risk, who had underlying conditions. People scolded them. People emphasized, the news media emphasized any negative thing that happened over there. But things are looking pretty good in Sweden. You can look down at the United States and see the exact same kinds of examples where you had states like Florida and states like Texas who basically just said, we're going to live and let live. We're going to get back to normal. And so they did. They opened up their societies. They didn't have the same kinds of restrictions. You can compare that to other states that had the sort of more Canadian mindset, like California or New York, that stayed locked down. You can compare the data, look at the hospitalizations and death rates, and you can have some interesting discussions. The only thing is, in Canada, we didn't really have experiments like that. There were some mild disagreements, but overall, the premiers in this country were sort of in lockstep. It didn't matter if you were an NDP, a Liberal, or a Conservative. They were pro-lockdown. They wanted to lock you down. We were stuck inside. We had to work from home. We had restrictions. We had vaccine mandates. They sort of drummed it up. And instead of looking to the US for some of these examples of saying, okay, look, there are other approaches, there are other ways to go, that didn't happen in Canada. And I don't expect it to. I know that Canadians, the sort of anti-American sentiment runs deep within Canada, especially our political culture, especially when there are Liberals in charge like we have federally with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So I don't expect Trudeau to say, oh, hey, look, Ron DeSantis is doing some pretty cool stuff in Florida. I think we're gonna try that. Or hey, let's look at Texas and see how they did. I don't expect that to happen in a million years. However, the UK is different. I think that perhaps Canada could look to the UK. They could see the UK as a peer country and say, okay, let's wait and see. Let's watch what happens over there. If things go according to plan and the Omicron variant is mild and it's already peaked and we're already getting past that, and now so many more people have natural immunity, and we can just kind of go on with our lives. And if you're in that risk group, you can protect yourself. If you're elderly, if you have underlying conditions, you can protect yourself. But for everyone else, it's like, let's just get on with our lives. Let's get back to normal. Let's put a new emphasis on health. Make sure that people are taking care of themselves. Make sure that people are getting the vitamins that they need, getting the exercise that they need, getting the nutritious foods that they need. Let's put an emphasis in our society back towards health, back towards trusting the judgment of the people, individual responsibility. Let's move on with our lives. So I'm really hopeful today. I hope that the Canadian government, that the Canadian Prime Minister will look to the UK, notice what's going on over there, and hopefully this will be a step towards the end of this awful, awful pandemic. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back in studio with our normal setup next week. I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is The Candice Malcolm Show.